The story for today comes from the Reddit user called EmoXan. The man on the corner. There's always that odd person in the neighborhood, whether it's someone who just stands behind bushes to scare little kids, or the one bird watcher who takes their hobby a bit too seriously. But there's this one person in my neighborhood who takes the cake. There's this man who just stands on the street corner every night, and that's all he does. He stands on the corner of my street about 2 houses down from mine. I walk home from work and I find him just standing there doing nothing. Well, until one night. I lived in Ohio all my life, grew up there, and got my own house in the suburbs when I was able to. I lived in a fairly nice neighborhood with little to no crime and pretty much nice people. I worked at a gas station about 3 blocks away, which was in walking distance. I had a car, but I figured I could just walk to work to save gas. I had a neighbor who I'd frequently talk to, an older woman named Christine. She came by all the time to offer me brownies or something like that pretty often, so I knew her pretty well. I was coming home from work one day, and as I turned down the street leading to my house, I saw him under one of the streetlights. A man who was at least 6 feet tall, but pretty lanky, wearing a brown suit jacket and a white undershirt with a gray tie, black slacks, gray dress shoes, and brown fedora. He was just looking down at the ground, and because he was, I couldn't get a good look at his face. Seeing someone dressed in that way and just standing there on the street corner unnerved me for some reason. Without interacting with him, I just walked past him and headed home, shivering as I did. That night I had a lot of trouble sleeping as I constantly looked out my window that was beside my bed. The next day I was heading to work when Christine caught me. "Good morning, Jamie. Off to work, are you?" Christine asked me as she held a bag of cookies. "Yeah, I've got a long day ahead of me, working from now to 12, I replied. Christine handed the bag to me. "Sounds like you'll need some extra energy," Christine smiled. I took the bag and I put it in my jacket. I then looked around before looking back at Christine. "Has somebody new moved here?" I asked the older woman. "Oh, I don't think so. Why do you ask?" I shook my head. "No reason. I better head to work. Thank you for the cookies." I thanked Christine before heading to work. While at work, one of my coworkers waved goodbye as they left, which left me all alone at the gas station in the middle of the night. As I was cleaning the floors, I heard a knock at the door, but when I looked up, I didn't see anybody. I quickly finished up my chores before looking at my watch and seeing it was closing time. I grabbed the store keys and headed outside to lock the doors, then start walking home. As I walked home, I saw the street lights starting to flicker, making me pick up my pace. I got onto my street, and there he was, but instead of looking at the ground, he was looking at me. I decided to get on the other side of the street and walk down it, while keeping my eyes on the man. I was just a house away from mine when I saw something that made my body freeze. Across the street, I saw Christine's door broken down. I ran over to her house and went inside to see blood smeared down the halls, so I followed the trail before reaching Christine's bedroom, where I saw the most disturbing sight I'd ever seen. Christine was laying in her bed and her arms and legs were torn off her body. Her chest split open and her organs hanging from the sides, and her face peeled off to expose muscles and veins. I panted heavily as adrenaline flooded my body, and I quickly ran out of the hall and outside. I was about to run towards my house when I saw him blocking my way. He stood under one of the flickering lights to show blood covering his sleeves and chest. I stumbled back before falling to the ground, but I rushed to my feet and ran in the opposite direction. I was almost off the street when something grabbed my leg and brought me down to the ground before pulling me backwards. I tried grabbing onto anything I could, but I couldn't get a grip on anything. I turned around as I stopped being dragged and saw the man standing over me, and as the light flickered, I could see his face. Mandibles like appendages were stabbed through the edges of his jaws while his eyes were pure red. The man's arms audibly snapped outwards to extend while his hands turned into curved blades almost like a praying mantis. The man tried to stab down into my body, but I rolled out of the way and crawled through his legs before getting up and running to my house. Hearing the man let out a loud, angry cry behind me, I rushed to my house and got inside to lock the door behind me and run into my bedroom. I heard the man thing trying to break down my doors as I searched for my closet, finally finding the aluminum bat I kept in there. I left my room and stood in the middle of the living room with shaking hands and sweat dripping down my face. The man finally broke through my door and made his way into my house, letting out another terrifying cry. The man sprinted at me and swiped his blade hands at me, but I blocked them with my bat. The man then managed to stab through my stomach and lift me in the air, but as he did, I swung my bat across his head. The man freak dropped me as he fell to the ground, and as he was stunned, I pulled the blade out of my stomach. The man went to get up, but I swung my bat down onto his skull, splattering a thick green liquid. I repeatedly smashed my bat into the thing's head and splattered the disgusting substance all over my face and bat. I stopped once I was sure the thing wasn't moving anymore, and I fell to the ground, sobbing as I coughed up blood. Once I was able to call 911, telling them that someone killed my neighbor and tried to kill me. Of course, not mentioning that the killer is some kind of fucking praying mantis. The police arrived, and once they did, they found the killer, all of them not knowing what to make of it. I ended up moving out of the neighborhood, and I'm sure you would too. Just be sure you know who you're living around. You never know what kind of person they could be. The end. This has been Gray Stories. I hope you liked them.